Welcome, champions, to the next overview and tier list ranking on any new or reworked champions for the current event launched for idle champions. This is where we'll break down their mechanics and place them in my overall tier list for every champion in the game. And don't forget to follow me on Twitch and come check me out there, since I go live and talk about the champions I cover in these videos the day I release them. Come say hi to me and my cats. This time around, we're getting 2 reworked champions, following the last event where we got 2 brand new champions to even things out, Rust and Eliwick. However, this event is going to work a bit differently. We're only getting one of the reworks for the first week, and the next week we'll be getting the other. So in this video, I'm going to cover the champion who will be available for the first week. Then next week I'll release another video covering the following release. So be sure to keep your eyes open for that. That means in this video we're going to cover the reworked champion Rust, the true neutral Tabaxi rogue in Seed 11. He serves the group as a support and gold find champion and is a member of the Ox Venturers Guild. As it is with most reworks, instead of a full release, I tend to only go over the changes to a champion unless they're reworked from the ground up and are basically a different champion altogether. And that's not really the case this time though. Rust works very similarly to how he used to, but there are certainly some changes to go over. To start, his attack works the same, shooting once with his pistols, then attacking 3 times with his rapier. His ult mostly works the same, as he will now always lose his shiny gold piece when he uses it. It's no longer a chance, which matters for how he works now, so pay attention when we talk about the changes to 1 gold piece. Before that though, let's look at his simpler formation abilities. Starting out with his gold find role, we still have Rust for Hire, which is a flat gold find bonus. Then we have Hello Friends, which now increases the damage of all champions for each gold find or Ox Venturers affiliated champion slotted in your formation, stacking multiplicatively. This used to interact with 1 gold piece, but has been simplified to a flat damage buff instead. And this is on top of another all-champion damage buff, Highest Bidder, which itself now stacks multiplicatively instead of additively. And that's kinda crazy, as Highest Bidder scales with your current order of magnitude % of gold find. That means for the gold find you have slotted, which you'll probably want anyway with Hello Friends, you'll be boosting this, and it will just keep scaling up as you push. And for all that favor you've built up over time, that will also scale this higher. That means this will fluctuate wildly based on your formation and campaign favor. But ultimately, it will almost always be performing at least decently without any form of crazy investment. Unless you are a very new player in the first push of a new campaign, but with the possibility to reach some really decent heights, considering this is one of 2 buffs he offers. The downside to both is neither are positional, so that does potentially lock him out of being used in a lot of formations these days. So let's take a look at 1 gold piece now. Forget what you knew about it before, as it's been simplified and does work a bit differently. Assuming Rust does not have his shiny gold piece, he now has a flat 10% chance to gain one after any kill that drops gold. Each time he finds one, he will gain a Riches stack. Rust will increase the effect of Hello Friends by 10% for each Riches stack he has, stacking multiplicatively. Rust will now always lose his shiny gold piece when he uses his ultimate, so you can reliably gain and lose his shiny gold piece in a more streamlined way to stack up Riches, which is capped at the highest area unlocked divided by 5, rounded down, so a maximum of 400. Rust also now has Rags to Riches, where if he is holding a shiny gold piece, he increases the effect of Hello Friends, and while he is not holding one, he then increases the effect of Rust for Hire. This works a bit counter to how it used to, so just keep in mind, the way it works now is holding shiny piece equals more buffing power, not holding shiny gold piece equals more gold find. His specializations are completely different, so forget about what you knew about them before, and let's take a look at this freshness. You choose between either Get Rich Quick, which will reduce the remaining ultimate cooldown of all other champions, who are either gold find or Ox Venturers, by 10% when he uses his ultimate. You could try to use this to reach his Riches stack cap quicker for Rust himself, as this will reduce the cooldown from the likes of both Dungeon Master and Astarion, who will in turn reduce Rust's ultimate cooldown timer with their ultimates. So he can drop his shiny piece faster with his ultimate, to be able to pick up one again quickly. Then he has even more riches, which instead of building it up quicker, will increase the overall stack cap by 20% for each champion in the formation with the Gold Find role or Ox Venturer's affiliation, stacking multiplicatively. With this option, we're looking at an overall potential cap of 2,483 at Area 2000 with a formation full of qualifying members. Lastly, he has Rust's Fever Dream, where when he uses his ultimate ability, the weather will change to raining gold, causing gold coins to rain from the sky. Who would have thought? Where you gain the gold equivalent of 5% of a monster kill in the current area every second. This will take your gold find bonus into account, but this won't replace an Azaka farm as it won't account for debuffs on an enemy. This can still be a useful boost to gold, or if you want to just do a really quick farm, or if you need to change weather for a variant mechanic. And since we're talking about weather, this is a whole new type of weather to stack up with Virgil if you use him. His equipment is slightly better than it was, maintaining the all-champ damage, 1 gold piece, rust for hire, and highest bidder, but he now has replaced his ultimate attack damage with Hello Friends. Ultimately though, his scaling through gear isn't all that crazy, as there are no pre-stacks or anything like that here. These are all post-stack bonuses. He more scales through his mechanics with the riches stack and your current order of magnitude for gold find. His feats are about what you would expect from when he came out. You basically just now are choosing whether or not you want to buff his gold find or damage buffing potential. Now what about his achievement and adventure variants? His achievement is, as most are, quite simple, requiring you to gain 300 of his riches stack in a single adventure. Just hang out with a familiar on his ultimate and AFK for a bit in an area where you are actively killing enemies and you're good. His variants overall, in my opinion, are quite easy. The first will force him in your formation where he cannot be moved or removed. The Devourer will appear as an additional boss in the Area 25 boss segment, and gold find will be reduced by 99%. However, gold find will be increased by 200% for each champion in the formation with the Gold Find role. The second variant will only allow champions with a constitution of 14 or higher, which is the same as the Vajra restriction, so keep that in mind. And every area, frozen skeleton archers that attack with a ranged attack appear, which do not drop gold or count toward quest progress. If any undead attack a champion, that champion will be stunned for 1 second. The third will again force Rust in the formation, starting him with his 1 gold piece ability unlocked, where he also will not be able to be moved or removed, but this one should not be that difficult, but it might require a more active playstyle, as when he is not holding his shiny gold piece, adjacent champion damage is disabled. When he is holding a shiny gold piece, non-adjacent champion damage is disabled. You could, however, simply gain his shiny gold piece and never use his ultimate so he maintains it the whole time, and build a formation around your DPS being adjacent to Rust. Again, overall, I feel like these are very completable restrictions for many players. The worst being the Con 14 restriction, but as long as you're able to clear Vajra decently, you're fine here. And now you're wondering, what about his availability? Being true neutral, that means he will not be available for Mert. Well, unless they throw one of those alignment feats at him. And he will only be available for Strahd if you get that +2 intelligence feat from his tiered rewards this event. He is available for Vajra, Zariel, and now he's been reworked, so will be viable for Elminster for the next 3 years. Also, he is available for every Day 1 Trials restriction, so he's got that locked down. But then the question is, who is he good with? Well, not really any of the meta DPS. He's not positional, so that takes him out for Artemis, Warduke, Black Viper, etc. He doesn't have the strength and isn't evil for Krond, and he shares a seat with the Dark Urge, so that's a no-go. He is exotic for Ashara if nothing else, and if you're running any kind of formation that doesn't require a specific formation ability, like positionals or debuffs, he'll be a solid pick, as at his absolute peak his numbers are actually quite good. I need to preface this as hard as I can. By sturdy strong buffer, I mean if you have the feats attached to 1 gold piece to increase the max stack, which I didn't think they would perform this well, and you take his even more riches specialization, and have an entire formation filled with gold find or ox venturers, and take the time to fully stack up riches, which at this point is 4,171 at Area 2000. We are looking at the singular best buff in the game, by like a lot. In my case, if we look at my current fully stacked Hello Friends and decently high highest bidder together, we are talking a 3.6 E231. Yes, you heard me right. A single champion buffing with an E231. But again, I also need to preface this. That requires a bad formation, and he doesn't really fit perfectly within the metas and takes a lot of time to farm up to get to that point, and the ability to push deep with a high favor. He's not reaching S tier because of those negatives, but if you're desperate to hard dedicate to it to get a push done, this is an option. We're not talking like a Will, where you can reliably build a formation around it. We're more talking an Umberto, which is very situational, but he is still good. And his numbers will exceed Umberto if you take the time. But Umberto also has the potential to fit within more formations. Just because of those raw numbers though, I'm putting him at the bottom of A+. He probably won't see a lot of use in dedicated formations. But I'm sorry, the numbers Mason. He really can just put up too good of numbers potentially to be knocked down any further than that. And at the end of the day, he's still the only gold find option in his seat. So he'll always be a pick for gold find teams. And because of the continued higher number output we've been seeing, let's just knock down Orkira and Kroll to the top of B+, until debuff actually matters again. I've said this many times on stream, but not really in my structured YouTube videos. I really do feel like this game has leaned into an importance on positionals in its current state. And I'd love to see some champions shake that meta up and be competitive in tandem. Viable DPS champions that can make use of the likes of all champion damage buffers like Rust in a permanent formation without relying on Valentine and other positionals. A DPS champion that scales pre-stackatively and multiplicatively with debuffs applied to an enemy, so we can see some good DPS numbers from a dedicated debuff team, which feels like something we're being led to with the Esmeralda changes and the release of Aeon, Umberto, and Ren. Branch it out. Speaking of other champions, what about the flex slot options for this event? We're looking at a couple of really rock solid options here, honestly. To start, we have Valentine, which is huge, as there is a reason for the current state of the game she's at the top of the tier list. She is an excellent support, used in most of the meta formations, like all of them, especially now that she has an evil feat available to help her even more in a War Duke or Kron formation. She scales excellently with item levels, and her biggest ability to scale, Socialite, has an event buff from her tier completions. This will give a really big boost to your DPS output if you happen to use her, which you probably do. And just overall, if you don't have her yet, get her. Then we also have Lae'zel, who is a great pick for the current hotness that is the absolute adversaries. If you are a new player, I've said this before, she is one of my recommendations for an early champion to get. And an absolute adversary team is one I'd highly recommend focusing on. She, in particular, serves as their speed champion, which really helps early on, and can even serve as your DPS until you iron out your roster. Even if you've already picked her up, her event buffs are increasing Ceremorphosis, so you'll get a large boost from that even if you've already put a lot into her. And then we also have Jim, among the best of scaling positional buffers out there. Very important for an Artemis team, and just all around, puts out great numbers. And like the other two, gains an event buff for his pre-stack ability, so you'll be able to spike his numbers with that for a while on top of that. Another great pick is Omen, one of the best gold find champions out there, who also actually has some excellent buffing numbers. An honorable mention is Shandy, as a great speed champion, but her speed comes from her base kit and feats and doesn't scale with item levels, so just keep that in mind. With the previously mentioned champions, I simply cannot recommend the rest. Veronica can be an alright buffer and counts as dead for some mechanics that matter for that, but has an annoying RNG mechanic to get her to be even remotely a competitive buffer these days, and she takes a bit of work to come fully online on top of that. Prudence and Ishii are both subpar DPS champions, and while Beetle and Grim have fun utility, their usefulness has been phased out a bit, and they just don't compete these days. So my top picks would be Valentine, Lae'zel, Jim, and Omen, depending on what you need in your formation. Hey you! I appreciate you taking the time to check the video out. Shoot that like, sub, and bell for me, you know what to do. Keep your eyes open next week for the video on Eliwick, as a part of this staggered release for this event. follow me on Twitch and check me out there. And as always, the ever most important thing, have a hell of a time out there, champion.